welcome to Impact 2023, our ongoing conversation, our platform where we're able to talk about different topics, talk about current events, talk about whatever comes to our mind in a safe place where we're able to discuss. For those of you who have been here before, those of you who it's the first time, this is a continuing and ongoing conversation. And as always, we ask that you type your questions and your comments into the comment section so that you can be a part of the ongoing conversation, so that you can be a part of what is going on here, the dialogue that goes back and forth. So we encourage you, please feel free. If you hear something that you disagree with, if you agree with, if you have a comment that you just want to put in and add to the ongoing conversation, please feel free to do so. As always, we go right into our conversation. So this one is just a tad bit different. If you don't mind, I'm going to vent. And I'm going to vent, but as always, I kind of set up based on current events or some events that are going on, and then I'm really going to I'm gonna vent a little bit, okay? And so, still put in your comments and your questions. As we know, one of the big topics that is going on, or that has been going on over the years, has been abortion. And whether you feel one way or another about abortion, what we know that has happened is that abortion has now the legal right to it, the constitutional right to it, in a sense, has been knocked down by the Supreme Court. And so now it's on each state to decide whether or not abortion will be legal, or to the extent that it's legal. But what has happened, and then that's not really what the discussion is, but what has happened is that currently right now there are 19 states, and the attorney generals in those 19 states are going against what is a plan by the current administration to make sure that the states and the police cannot use your medical records in order to try to prosecute people for abortions. And so if somebody left one state that basically said abortion isn't legal, or abortion after a certain amount of time isn't legal, and they traveled to another state and they got an abortion, and they came back home to their state, some of these 19 states basically want to use your medical records to see what you've done in another state, and so to see whether or not we can prosecute you. And so we can prosecute in many states, prosecute the woman, or prosecute anybody who may have aided you into going into another state to be able to get the procedure. And so that is what these 19 states are doing. And here's my venting. And here's my thing. Two parts. The first one is a thought process. As a Black man, I've spoken to some other Black people who are adamantly against abortion. And one of their things was, well, they had this understanding or this thought process, or they were sold this narrative that Black people are using abortion at a very high rate, and that we have to protect. That's one of the things that's been put out here, and that's really like hurting the Black community, because we have abortion at a high rate. One, that's not true. Proportionally, the amount of abortions are pretty much the same by race. But that's one of the thought processes, that we have to protect. And I've heard this. They firsthand. There's people saying it to me, like, what we need to do is protect our Black babies, because abortion is just hitting our community so hard. Even though it's a fallacy, if somebody believes that, I can see how they can kind of get that together. But the part of it is, so you're on board with these 19 states having police then go after people who've had abortions. And so if you believe that Black people are having abortions at such a high rate, then what you're trying to understand and convey to me is that you want police to have a special job to go after people of color, because you believe that they have a higher rate of abortion. And so the people of color who are already over policed, and we know what happens when police get involved at a high rate with people of color, because one of the reasons that we've even had this program is that we started with some of the unjust and the unrest that was going on because of police and their responses to people of color. You're basically getting on board with saying, hey, we need to have a special part of a policeman's job to harass and address people of color's issues versus everybody else. Now, we know that, or if you don't know, you should know that people of color, our crimes have historically been treated differently. If a person of color and someone else commits the same crime, we are more likely to be arrested for that crime. We will be more heavily prosecuted for that crime. And so if you're giving an additional task to the police officers to do something that you think that is affecting the Black community, then now we're getting over policed or having another episode of being over policed again. I say all this because I say this is foolishness, absolute foolishness, that people get on board with these type of things. Also to the legality of it. If you commit a crime in another state, and then come home, your state doesn't prosecute you for that crime. So for example, and the crudest example that you can sit back and look at, they want to do this with abortion, but at the end of the day, Sin City has been sitting there. Prostitution has been legal in Vegas. Nobody is going, none of these states where prostitution is illegal, which is pretty much almost all of the other states, with a couple who have legalized in the last couple of years, but pretty much all these other states. So you're telling me every time a guy goes out to Las Vegas, goes down with prostitution, that they're then trying to prosecute them in their home states? Like, whoa, you live in Tennessee, went out here to Vegas. All right, we're going to prosecute you. No, they don't do that. And they can't do that. It's a jurisdiction issue. But yet they want to do that with abortion. Why am I talking about this and venting about this? You're like, oh man, this is crazy. Because I think that sometimes the foolishness of what we get involved in, you don't realize what that's going to do to the community or your community. And I'm specifically saying, because again, I'm a Black man. And to those of you who this may not apply to, I'm sorry, but this is my vent. Like I said at the beginning, is that what we're doing is we just got away from, in a lot of situations in states where we're saying, all right, we need to drop some of these powers of the police to do small crimes because they're using them disproportionately against people of color. And it's causing some issues. Whether they're doing it on purpose or not, it is causing some issues where certain crimes are being over-policed against people of color. And then we're saying now, all right, we don't like abortion. Okay. We're now going to use that to over-police people. We're going to use that to over-police women of color. We're going to use that to over-police any person of color who may assist in somebody going to another state and doing something else. If these states voted that they don't want abortion after a certain number of weeks in their state, that's fine. That's your business. Whatever. That's and this is not an issue of whether or not you believe in abortion or not. But to empower the police to then try to chase people down in different states, something that we don't do for anything else. Let's be clear, when you cross state lines and do a crime in another state, it's that other state's responsibility to prosecute you. That's why we have rules where we have to extradite people back to where they're supposed to be. We have to transfer them back to their states. But now you're trying to supersede what we do with every other crime to make it a little different for this one. And just, there's something in me that's sitting back saying, and whether I'm right or wrong, it's something sitting back saying, well, look at the bill of goods that you sold all these people. It's that, Black and brown people are being, are got this high abortion rate, which again is not true. It is not true. But yeah, if that's the bill of goods and that's the way you're selling it, then when you turn around and the police are prosecuting people of color at a higher rate for these crimes that you call crimes, then you shouldn't be surprised, or we wouldn't be surprised, or I wouldn't be surprised. Can't sit back and be like, oh man, 50%, 70% of the people who are being prosecuted for these abortion crimes are people of color, even though less than 25% of the total number of abortions is people of color. And you can look those stats up if you would like to, because they're true. That's what the silliness of, I think, sometimes of what we do is, I think we're not paying attention, and you get fooled, or we get fooled, or we hurt ourselves. And so, and again, this is my vent, because I've heard people say this to me specifically when they're talking about issues like that, when it comes to abortion or other things. That people and they're talking about, let's prosecute folk. How come we the folk that always get prosecuted? If you don't believe me, let's as a reference point, in Florida, they decided that they were going to prosecute people for voter fraud. And specifically, the voter fraud that they were going after were people who were voting, who were felons or ex-felons, who had a criminal record. And these are people who, and the people who they're prosecuting are people who thought they had the right to vote. Not people who were trying to sneak around and vote, but people who thought they had the right to vote. And overwhelmingly in Florida, what they found out was most of the people who, again, were prosecuted for the crimes were people who thought they had the right to vote. And the overwhelming majority of them were people of color. People, white people, or whatever you want to call people of not color, who were caught in the similar situations. Similar situations. They said the overwhelming majority of them were given a warning, or nothing happened at all, even though they caught them. And because it was clear that in Florida, what they wanted to do is send a message to people of color: don't vote. If you do vote, you better have never done anything wrong in your life. Because they were trying to put pressure out here to make sure and send a message. Now, my vent and my thing is, let's not be stupid enough to think that a message is not being sent when they're trying to put police to go into people's medical records to try to chase them down in other states. You will clearly and quickly see, whether or not I'm right or wrong. We will quickly see whether or not it's the majority people of color who are going to be prosecuted for these crimes that aren't crimes. We can comment. My first comment is one that I have made many times before. You cannot legislate morality. Those who champion making abortion illegal often see themselves as morally superior. The facts are, these are the same moral people who fall short on issues of poverty, racism, gun violence, and the list goes on. Yeah, no, you should never be, I agree with that. You shouldn't be trying to legislate morality. At the end of the day, people should have sort of the option to do, what they want to do. Your job is to put it out there. I think if you believe that it's not right to do certain things, you put that out there. You would hope that, and you would encourage people to do the right thing, to be moral. But you can't legislate morals. And one of the things that's always been said is that different people have different morals. Even though as society we try to tend to say we have a moral standard, but different people have different morals, different backgrounds. Some people think you should get married at 12 years old. Here in the United States, we don't. But historically, across the world, people have gotten married at 12 years old. It's a moral issue here in the United States. It's illegal. It's a crime. In most states, you even have to have. In most states, even if you want to get married at 16-year-old, you have to have permission granted by your adults on both sides. And so, and that's only in some states. Some states just don't deal with it at all. So morality is different wherever you go. And so to try to legislate your morality, it's really a weird issue. But I also just want to remind people, like, we got to be smart. And let's not get fooled. The whole reason, again, we have a policing problem. The whole reason we have a policing problem is because we have people and characters who are police who are not going to act in the best manner. And that's not everybody. Depending on who you're talking to. If you're talking to me, I think it's a majority, but it's not everybody. But what we don't need to do is put into place situations that'll get them in even more situations of where they can possibly be a bad character. And so we got to be smart. And so I think what has happened again, and I'll always say this, and again, this is about abortion, but it's not. When you start dealing with things that aren't in the Bible, when you start dealing with things that people tell you are right or wrong, and you start attributing that to Christian values and Christianity and things like that, and you start making that more important than what is actually in the Bible, then I think it makes you easily manipulatable, and then it makes you foolish, so that you're able to fall for things. And so when you're sitting here and you're talking about how important abortion is, and oh my goodness, it's so bad, and it's a sin, and blah 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 blah, even though it's not in the Bible, and if abortion was going on during the Bible times and pre-Bible, abortion was going on long before then. And if it was so important, I think it would have been mentioned. If it was so important that it was more important than what was listed in the Bible, that we should be more concerned about abortion than we should about our neighbor and all that would have been listed. But it's not. But you make it so important in your life, and then you become easily manipulated to where now you'll lie, now you'll steal, now you won't care about your neighbor. Now you will violate or go against the rules that are in the Bible, the laws that are in the Bible, the ways that we're supposed to treat people in the Bible, because you got yourself out of order. And I think that's what's going on. You get yourself out of order, and now the next thing you know, people of color are being chased down by the police at a higher. We're having another reason and another excuse to chase down people of color because we're sitting back here because we've gotten out of order. You've gotten yourself out of order. And so you get fooled. These passion projects, I think, get us fooled. So if there's something that you really are passionate about, make sure that it's in order so that you don't become obsessed with it and then you get fooled. And so to my friends, my people who have said things as far as about abortion and the Black and brown community and the impact, you're being fooled. And I don't like the fact that we have 19 attorney generals, some who are people of color themselves, who are sit here and want to get police involved in chasing down people's medical records so that they can prosecute people, and who we know that they're going to prosecute people of color at that high rate. We need people who are smarter than that. We need people who are more intellectually integritous than that. And I think as people of faith, I think we need to make sure that we're going to be intellectually honest and stop lying and saying that abortion is all out in the Bible, because it's not. And if I'm wrong, show it to me. Show me one time where it's there. And even and be smart now. Do some history lessons and see when abortion really started, or when you think it started. Because if you think it's not in the Bible because it really wasn't going on, then you don't know what you're talking about. And I think you need to do some research so you can know what you're talking about, to be informed about what's going on. If these people have such a concern for human life and that life is sacred, then why do we have children who are homeless, children who go hungry, children who don't have access to medical care, children who have inadequate educational resources, and the list goes on and on? Yeah. We're worried about those who don't exist instead of worried about those who do exist. And, when we sit back and people want to cut these programs, they want to cut SNAP, they want to cut, they want to cut educational programs. They want to take money out of public schools, which is for everybody, and try to take them off into private things. That's a whole nother conversation. But when you're sitting back here and you're taking away resources for children who are alive, for children who are here, for children who you can see in front of your face, and when you're taking away those resources for those people, but then at the same time, you're talking about, how much you care about life, it becomes problematic. It becomes hypocritical. It becomes weird in the sense of, like, how can you say that you care about life with the people who you as the word says, how are you going to tell me about, you're going to love a God who you don't see when you don't love the brother who you do see every day? And so how are you going to talk about these babies that you don't see when the kids that you see or can see or hear, you don't care nothing about? So we got to get ourselves in order. That's all it is. I know This was my rant because I've heard this, and again, this is not hearing it on TV or news articles. This is coming from people, and you can see it and hear it coming out of their mouth, and you're just like, dude, you know what? You know, the police who are good do a great job. We do not need to put any more on their plate. So chasing down people's medical records should not be on their plate, because eventually Black and brown people are going to get abused in this process. And that is what I believe. So that's it. Now, I love the quotes that came in today. We got to stop with trying to, legislate morality. You can't have a law that says be a nice person, to care for one another. That's just something that we're supposed to do and learn to do and try to do. And that's the way pretty much everything is. With the exception of the big ones, like, we can't go out here and murder, and we can't go out and steal. We need laws like that for fairness. But when we start to get way outside, I think it then turns into something that's easy for abuse. Remember what's going on in Florida. Remember the Florida example of what they're doing. They're using the laws and manipulating the police and manipulating the prosecutors in order to do a job, which is to keep Black and brown people from voting, or intimidate them not to vote. Intimidate anybody who was a felon who tried to get their rights back, intimidated them into not voting. And instead of just saying, there was, because in many cases it's a administrative error, where they were actually told they had the right to vote, and what they're trying to do is prosecute them, send them to jail, because they're ex-felons, so it doesn't matter. We can do whatever to them. That's how they think. But send them to jail because they want to send a clear message. Now, what are they going to do to women and to women and men who may help when somebody needs to have not even really have an abortion, but to have a medically induced abortion because their life or their baby's life is in jeopardy, but because of the rules that are set up in their state, they can't get it done. And so there are people who have almost died. If you listen to some of the testimonies that have been given, they even did one just recently in DC in the House, where somebody they talked about the fact that they had a pregnancy that wasn't viable, but they needed to be able to it's not even an abortion. I don't know why they call it that, but they needed to be able to get the fetus out, but they couldn't do it because of the way they set up the laws now. And so so now we're going to prosecute those people who are trying to have a medical procedure done. And so we just got to watch. We just got to be smart. We just got to be smart. And we just, when I was young, I thought that sometimes older guys, Black guys were paranoid about some of these, putting laws together. Man, it ain't always about us. It's not always about us, but oftentimes it is about us, and we don't even know it. And so we need to be smarter. Like the older guys used to tell me back in the day, it's about us. This one is about us. All right. Well, that's it. Next week, we're going to tackle affirmative action. So just to give you a little heads up, next week we're going into affirmative action. We're going to talk about its effects. We've talked about it a little bit before, but now we're going to have some different perspective. We're going to have some people coming in and talk about it as well. And so tune in for that. As always, on Thursdays, Thursday Thirst, 7 o'clock, right here on YouTube and Facebook. Sundays, 10 o'clock, YouTube and Facebook. We're having worship as well. And for those of you who are in the Richmond, Virginia area, on Friday at 7 o'clock, we will be having a game night here. So if you want to play cards, board games, dominoes, whatever you play, come on out. And that's for everybody who's in the local area. And everybody who's not, you should have your own game night and have fun with people around you. That would be great. One more quick comment. The church today needs to question and challenge those who claim to be Christians. The word of God is very clear. When I was hungry, yes, when I was hungry, you fed me. And it is. It's very clear. I think that's what it is. We need to have a little bit more discussion. We need to have a little bit more pushback. I think sometimes when we got people who get out of line with this weird pseudo Christianity, not understanding our responsibilities towards others, towards our brothers and sisters in the community. And that's not the people who you like. That's everybody. That's not the people who are in the United States. That's everybody. That's not people who are legal citizens. That's everybody. And a lack of understanding of that by some folks. And so, yeah, I think it is our responsibility to continue to push back against those who say some things that aren't in line with what the Bible is actually saying. All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us in the comments. We will be back here again next week. And as always, have a good one again. Thank you for joining us.